Assalamu alaikum. Exciting things are happening at Muslim News, brought to you by Muslim Network TV. Our dedicated team is working tirelessly to bring you news reports, international coverage, and in-depth analysis that resonates with your world. We're not just reporting, we're offering perspectives that are uniquely ours. We're committed to connecting you to the stories shaping your community and the world. Every report, every story is carefully curated with you in mind, making your world just one click away. Join us and let's explore the depths of the stories that matter. Find Muslim News wherever you get your news. Your world, your stories, your Muslim Network TV. Stay informed, stay connected. Watch now. Assalamu alaikum. Exciting things are happening at Muslim News, brought to you by Muslim Network TV. Our dedicated team is working tirelessly to bring you news reports, international coverage, and in-depth analysis that resonates with your world. We're not just reporting, we're offering perspectives that are uniquely ours. We're committed to connecting you to the stories shaping your community and the world. Every report, every story is carefully curated with you in mind, making your world just one click away. Join us and let's explore the depths of the stories that matter. Find Muslim News wherever you get your news. Your world, your stories, your Muslim Network TV. Stay informed, stay connected. Watch now.
Tonight, a mayoral election that has captured the attention of not just New York City and the US, but people around the world. We are live from our Toronto and Washington studios. We really thank you for joining Muslim Network TV's special live election coverage of New York's mayoral election. Assalamu alaikum, I am Ahmed Ramadan. This is a race that is not only shaping the future of the largest city in America, but a reflection of the soul of democracy itself. I'm Ahmed Ramadan, and I'm joined by my co-host, Hina Zaberi. Hina, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam, Ahmed. Yes, it's an exciting night. It's charged with anticipation here in Washington, D.C. We have a lot of Muslim organizers, progressive organizers, they've gone to New York City to take part in this historic election. I have been looking at some of the numbers and watching this race very closely, because not only is it about the elections, it is also, we want to see what kind of justice wins. We've seen in city level leadership, especially a city like New York City, the Big Apple, it's a global hub of business. And it can impact everything across the country, on surveillance, on policing, on refugee resettlement, on the border, like people coming in, crossing the border, seeking asylum. A lot of those policies can impact the rest of the country. So yes, everybody is watching this race extremely closely.
It's actually been very interesting to see the amount of attention that this race has gotten. Why do you feel that? I mean, you've mentioned obviously why it's important, New York as a city, but especially now. I mean, we're seeing records being broken from the early voter turnouts, from the amount of people that are going to be voting tonight. Why do you think that especially this election has gotten so much attention?
So we have a Democratic nominee who's a Democratic socialist. He's got swag, he's got flavor, he's got culture. He's different. He's not one of the old boys, right? And so we've seen him dancing with the Gambian community. We've seen him rapping in African, from Uganda. He's been rapping, and people enjoy that. Like, people I feel on the ground feel like he's one of them. We've seen Urdu songs being written about them, Bengali aunties door knocking. So it's New York. His election is New York City. So it's not just the 1%, but it's the street vendors, the taxi drivers, people who identify with him as a person of color, as a child of immigrants, and someone who's been working on progressive policies. And I also want to point out that the backdrop is the genocide in Gaza, and he is very vocally a person who stands for Palestinian freedom. And I think that is also impacting where finally people are seeing a candidate on such a large global stage being able to speak about the genocide in Gaza and not be very unapologetic about his stances. And that we have not seen in the Democratic Party. The latest poll that I have read is 76% or 79% of super Democrats want sanctions on Israel. But we're not seeing that those policies being reflected by the Democratic Party, right? So that is definitely, I think, playing into this, the hype on the ground as well. And we must also acknowledge the chilling reality that this election is unfolding in a climate of heightened anti-Muslim animus, bigotry, to divert from the genocide in Gaza. Let's focus on, the feel has been on the ground, and we'll talk about it much more on later on as we do our analysis with our guests about the anti-Muslim bigotry that we have been seen throughout this election, the attacks on him, his campaign, as well as the Muslim community.
Yeah,
Just to
you touched on a lot of points, which we will delve into more throughout the evening. Things like Islamophobia, his charismatic nature, other things like that. But one of the things that I've been seeing is that many people he reached out to, he was on the streets. I'm sure you've seen the video in 2024, just speaking to people and asking them who they voted for. Many of them voted for Trump. Many of them didn't vote. And the common response, the theme of people's reaction was they didn't believe that their vote mattered anymore. They didn't believe that, democracy was reflecting their will. And I think this is why there's been so much attention on this, because like you're saying, he's really reflected. He's really given people some hope. He's made people believe that, if I go out and I support this person and I vote, that I will actually get something out of it. It's not just going to go to the top 1 or 10%. It's really about the little guy that has been struggling for so long in that city. So, there is definitely a lot of that.
Right? The rent freeze, his policies are also very people friendly and not the rich friendly. But what I'm scared about, and I hope our guest today will be able to dive deeper into this, is what if this is another Obama moment? Do you remember? I do. The hope, the hype that everybody had on Obama. He was also a community organizer. He was for Palestinian freedom, and how he changed once he was in power. And that is something that, I hope that our guests can discuss more today.
For sure. Actually, our first guest is ready. We have with us Garland Nixon, a Washington, D.C. political analyst and radio talk show host who's been a sharp critic of establishment politics. So I'd like to welcome our next guest.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. So as you heard, Sister Henna was talking. Please feel free to share your comments about what she just said.
Yeah, a couple of things. The comment that she made was a legitimate comment that's shared by many people, and that is, there's an old saying: a cat that jumps on a hot stove will never jump on another hot stove, nor will he jump on a cold one. And basically, people have been burned so many times by politicians that people are very wary. As a black person, Black America, Obama's here, he's great, and then we saw the result was more war and all kind of terrible policies that were reflected. So that is a legitimate concern that we can't know until, hopefully after he gets elected. But there are other issues that I think are of great concern. And one of the principal issues, I think, is that we have a very shortly we'll be going into an election cycle where there will, I'm sure that a number of these Democrats and Republicans will be challenged over the issue of Zionism, Israel, and the genocide. And I think a positive thing, notwithstanding whatever direction Mr. Soon to be Mayor Mamdani goes, is that I think that a lot of people will be challenged, incumbents will be challenged. And what this will demonstrate when he wins, and I believe that he will win, what it will demonstrate is that people can run. They can run in opposition to Zionism. They can run in opposition to U.S. foreign policy that they don't like, and they can still win. Because in America, what's drilled into our heads politically is if you don't support Zionism, if you don't support Israel, if you don't support U.S. foreign policy, no matter how imperialist, then you can't win. So don't even bother running unless you're a fervent supporter of the Netanyahu regime and Zionism. And I think what we can learn tonight for young people who are planning on running is that not only can they run in opposition to Zionism, in opposition to a brutal U.S. foreign policy and win, but that's the formula for victory. And that's what I'm hoping the message that comes out, that the formula for victory is to oppose this, the violence that the United States has visited upon so many people, particularly brown people in this world.
Garland, in New York is often called a testing ground for national movements. What are you seeing tonight? Is this an election, a referendum on the status quo, or do you think it's something deeper?
I do think it's a referendum for a number of reasons, and that is what we've seen in the United States over the last few years. What we're seeing is political instability, and the political instability is obvious based on something you said earlier, and that was you have a high percentage of people in the Democratic Party who want particular policies. 88%, I believe, of Democrats were in favor of Medicare for all. Again, when it comes to Gaza, we saw the 2024 election where 80% of the people wanted the violence to stop. And 80% of the people in a party want something, and the other 20% control the party. So we were seeing this thing fall apart. And what we're seeing now is mainstream Democrats and the power brokers in the party coming out oftentimes against Mr. Mamdani, or keeping their mouth shut, even though it's obvious that the masses are agreeing with, at minimum, his foreign policy, and though they may be suspicious, would like to see his domestic policies instituted. So we're seeing that gap between the political class and the ruling elite and the everyday working class people. And hopefully a victory by Mr. Mamdani will be a wake-up call, not for the ruling elite. I don't expect them to ever wake up, but a wake-up for the working class, that they can, in fact, be a part of an anti-war coalition, be a part of what I think should be an anti-Zionist coalition. But they should definitely be able to push back against U.S. foreign policy, because it is really dragging the country and the world into a very dangerous position.
And what I'm just curious to learn, what for Friday, SNAP benefits ended throughout the country. And here is a candidate who is now saying, I'm going to have free buses, I'm going to freeze your rent. How much is that the economy going to be playing in what we're going to see, hopefully, as the election results come in?
Oh, I think it definitely will. Many people in the New York area will remember a guy, I forgot his name, but, he was treated as a joke, but he said the rent is too high. And that was a candidate a few years, and that was his only thing, the rent is too high. But even today, if you say that the rent is too high, person, everyone remembers him. You know why? Because the rent is too high. Because what we're looking at is a circumstance where our economic system no longer provides decent jobs for people, no longer puts people in a position where they can survive, they can feed their families, et cetera. And more people have fallen from the upper middle class to the middle class to the struggling class, because the majority of Americans are in a paycheck to paycheck struggling class. And we have been told in the past that if the government looks out for the general welfare of the people, as is set forth in the Constitution, in the General Welfare Clause, we're told that if the government does what the Constitution calls for, that's evil, that's communism, that's something we don't want. The truth of the matter is that is exactly what the American people want. They want something different. I think, again, we won't know whether he is or isn't different, but we see that Mr. Mamdani at minimum represents something different. And he represents, in a way, the clash between the working class and the political elite. And but it's not just the economic clash. There is a moral class where people are on the street saying, we do not want to be a part of genocide. We don't want to put our money, we don't want to spend our money on genocide. We want to stand up against something that we feel is wrong and horrible and immoral. And our leaders either just sit on their hands and pretend like they can't do anything, or they fight against us. I think this election represents the opportunity maybe to get past the illusion of democracy that we have now. Because if 80% of a party wants something and they can't get it, if the majority of people want particular policies and they cannot get those policies, that's not democracy, that's the illusion of democracy. And if people can select a candidate that the political class and the ruling elite are not in favor of, that is the definition of democracy. So we will see. And again, I know there are people that'll say, I don't trust Mr. Mamdani, or I don't trust any politician, excuse me, any politicians, and that's fair and reasonable based on what's happened in the last few years. But I do think that there is a symbolic representation involved in this particular race that is bigger than just Mr. Mamdani or New York City itself. That it's symbolic of democracy and the power of the people.
So we have with us another guest, Dr. Junaid Ahmed. He is a professor of law, religion, and global politics, and is the director of the Center of Studies of Islam and Decolonization. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for joining us.
You're going to have to unmute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I think he's muted.
Okay. There Yes. I wanted to say thank you. Assalamu alaikum to my brother and sister there. And I'm so happy we got Garland Nixon. We've been on some things together, but he probably doesn't remember me. But my students are huge fans of his. So it's wonderful. And I'm just listening to the analysis, and I was hoping that they just don't introduce me. Let him go. Let Garland go, because he's captured everything about.
No, we're very happy to have both of you. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us, and Dr. Ahmed for joining us. And just building on what Garland was saying, you saw a lot of Democrats very tepid to endorse Mamdani. Chuck Schumer hasn't endorsed him. Hakeem Jeffries endorsed him, but he was very hesitant to. It wasn't like a full-fledged, chest-out endorsement. And when he was asked if he was the future of the party, his answer was basically no, the future of the party, and he gave some very vague, generic kind of nothing substantive answer. And this is where I want to turn to you and just ask you, how do you think, is he the future of the party, and what does the leadership of the Democratic Party have to do to embrace the energy that he's brought out in people?
Right. So I think this is the fundamental problem we've had forever, to put it quite frankly. What is the future of the Democratic Party? Occasionally, we will get pretty progressive candidates on a lot of issues, not necessarily all issues. But then what happens is that somehow the Democratic Party establishment finds ways to to co-opt them, to soften their rhetoric. We've seen this time and time again. And so while I don't want to be, accused here of, well, they're the same, the Republicans and the Democrats are the same, there's no question in my mind in terms of their corporate donations and the lobbies, etc., as we've seen during this genocide in Gaza. They have bought politicians along both lines of the aisle in Congress. So I think that this idea of the future of the Democratic Party, I think our friend Brianna Joy Gray said it best. she said that the Democratic Party does not deserve someone like Zohran Mamdani. And it was interesting she said that, and then she's like, for her it was three things. If I'm remembering correctly, it was that either he will break the Democratic Party, highly unlikely, or the Democratic Party will break him, or he'll just have to leave. So, because, again, and this is, we're focusing on this because this is mayor of New York City. If it was mayor of some other place in the country, there would obviously be not so much focus. And obviously, this is not the presidential election either. However, again, to re-emphasize, this is New York City, financial capital of the world, lots of these interests, and therefore you have all of these players. I mean, Cuomo is the front man put out there for all of these interests, including, Trump, who says I don't really like him, but there's no way in heck that we can have a Mamdani there. So I think to come back to your question, it's the entire kind of political and economic establishment of New York that is against this type of even like moderate, this when we say about socialism, even this moderate discourse of okay, free buses, one subsidized grocery store in a neighborhood, very basic things that I mean, I don't know if you want to call it socialist, fine, but they're just very basic things. But it also then demonstrates the way he's being attacked, and of course, beyond the what he has certainly advanced is the class struggle. I mean, we have to be very clear about this. This is class consciousness and class struggle that he is raising, even if whether he uses the language or not. That is it. And that, so beyond all of these Zionist billionaires, yes, they despise the fact of his position on Israel and Palestine, but we should also be aware there's more than that. They are the billionaires that he wants to target and to make New York more affordable for New Yorkers.
Well, for those of us in our audience just joining in, we're talking about the New York electoral elections, mayoral elections, and let's take a look at, we've heard a lot about what Mamdani isn't. Let's look at what he is. He's a name that's become synonymous with courage, swag, and promoting culture in American elections. American politics. He's a child of immigrants and a Muslim. And as Dr. Ahmed put it very, succinctly, that even though he calls himself a democratic socialist, the policies, and this is a term that is very different from socialism. This is an American politics term. And maybe, Garland, you can go into, after we show this clip, what is a democratic socialist in American politics.
Just one thing, sister, sorry if I interrupt. One of the interesting things that has happened, I guess we can thank not necessarily just Mamdani, but Bernie Sanders. For the longest time, certainly during the Cold War, Garland knows this very well, Cold War up until now. I mean, we could not use the word socialism. I mean, forget about communism or anything else. But we could not use the word socialist to describe ourselves in the mainstream. And if it ever got into the mainstream, it's like socialist / terrorist. They must be the same thing. And so that is a huge step forward. We have to give some credit. We have to give credit to Bernie, but Zohran, again, unashamedly using that term. So when I said that, whether it's socialist or not, whether I do give credit to the fact that these people have helped to normalize this term that otherwise the dominant American political elites for decades and decades have demonized this word so much that now we're trying to break through it. Sorry to interrupt, sister.
Okay, so let's take a look at, let's watch this short piece called The Rise of Resistance.
His father wrote a book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. The son turned out to be a great Muslim, a good neighbor, and an excellent citizen. Within 2 years of becoming a citizen in 2018, he was elected to the New York State General Assembly. And now, within 7 years of being a citizen, He is a presumed mayor of New York City, the largest American city with 8 million people. He is Zohran Mamdani. He does not hide his faith for politics.
My father, his family comes from Gujarat in India, and his family is Muslim. I'm Muslim. And Narendra Modi helped to orchestrate what was a mass slaughter of Muslims in Gujarat.
And he does not lower the flag of Free Palestine to win an election.
So like some of you, my journey in organizing and my journey in politics began with Palestine. It was and continues to be something that I deeply care about.
Born in Kampala, raised in post-apartheid South Africa, and connected with neighbors in New York's Queens, Mamdani knows languages of the world.
Es Mamdani, pero a cada rato me dicen Mumdari, Mumnari. New Yorkers मुश्किल से afford कर रहे हैं रोटी, कपड़ा और मकान. मैं ये सब बदलने के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ.
His politics are for justice.
What act would you take as mayor if the board approves those hikes this summer?
I would freeze the rent. And I've said that because we have close to 2.5 million New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing.
He is a coalition builder. In a city with the highest number of Jewish residents outside of Israel, Mamdani teamed up with Lander, who is himself Jewish. Both cross-endorsed each other in the race for mayor. Let's hope that both continue their relationship, drowning fear and hate while supporting equal rights for all people. Billionaires are panicked. They burned through $25 million, carpet bombing voters with TV ads and mailers that characterized Mamdani as dangerous. But New Yorkers proved smarter than those billionaires. 50,000 voters knocked on 1.5 million doors to get Mamdani across the victory line. An estimated 20% of Jewish New Yorkers also voted for him. General elections are months away. It may not be easy. Islamophobia, defeated in the primary, is not dead yet. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican, tied Mamdani to the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, which occurred when he was just 9. Representative Andy Ogles wants him deported. But the commander-in-chief must always lead. So President Trump called him a 100% communist lunatic. Mamdani is facing death threats and Islamophobia, but keeps his signature smile and only a few tears. He remains defiant.
I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in.
Mamdani even says that he will honor the International Criminal Court's warrant arresting Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu if he comes to New York.
As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also.
But he remains focused on changing the democratic politics. New Yorkers like this straight-talking, honest, fresh face. So does Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC.
It was one of the great political victories in modern history. Zohran ran a brilliant campaign.
This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I am here loud and proud to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 for mayor of New York City.
Mamdani is a rising star in American politics. New York Muslims were quick to unite behind him. He is liberating American Muslims while pledging to serve New York.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about there's a new report and some things that this report also touched on that exposes the digital Islamophobia surrounding this election. A recent study titled Tracing Online Hate Against Zohran Mamdani by US-based anti-caste civil rights coalition called Equality Labs found that a staggering 1.15 million anti-Muslim posts targeted Mamdani, with a combined reach of over 150 billion users. Another 1.43 million posts falsely labeled him a quote-unquote communist, reaching more than 330 billion users. In total, over 17 million posts have circulated about him across platforms, in 2025, showing how coordinated online hate has become part of the political battlefield. And this just isn't an attack on one candidate. It's a reflection of the deep anti-Muslim bigotry. So I wanted to ask both of you, as you hear this and you reflect back on his campaign, what are your thoughts on this, and how can Muslims run for office without being either tokenized and really be a part of the American political fabric when this is the sort of campaigns that target their faith?
Well, I would say this, and that is, and this is based on, the civil rights movement, et cetera. And that is, it's about bravery. It's about knowing that you're going to run into attacks. It's about knowing you're going to run into, unjustified rhetorical attacks and all of these things, but doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do, and doing it because it's what you believe in. So I think that what we're looking at now, and particularly with the attacks on Islam, I believe are coordinated attacks from the Israeli government. I believe they're also coordinated with the Zionist billionaires here, and with certain online influencers that, we've found that they've literally paid people up to $7,000 per post. So they're putting out a lot of money, but from the looks of what's happening with Mr. Mamdani, they're not getting a good return on their money, because there is a material reality that people are living. So from one perspective, yes, they can spend $1 trillion. Let's not forget, Mike Bloomberg, when he ran for president, he put out $500 million in 3 weeks. And he didn't get didn't increase his support by 1 percentage point. So the Zionists, most likely, and the Israelis and Israel supporters will put out all of the money, and they have plenty of it, to do their anti-Zionist evil works. But a combination of people seeing what happened in Gaza, of people experiencing the inability of constituents to influence their, and I use this word charitably, their representatives in Congress who aren't representing to them. And of course, when we add the economic struggle that people are going through, when you put those together, people don't care what pops up on Twitter or TikTok or all of these things that they get from these various sources. They're dealing with reality, and reality says, I can't pay my bills, I can't feed my family, I'm getting laid off. And of course, I'm seeing terrible things happening to families and children, and my government is supporting that, and I'm opposed to it. And no matter what I do, they won't stop. So it's also an opportunity, I think, for some people to punch back. When these the political class, Chuck Schumer, et cetera, come out and say, don't vote for that person, whatever you do, don't vote for him, there's a contingent of Americans that say, thank you for telling me who to vote for. It's the only way I can get back at you. And I believe that when the Chuck Schumers et al. Come out and say, we don't like him, in the same way that when they went after Donald Trump, I'm not a Trump supporter, but as they charged him with everything but mopery on the high seas, I continually said, they hate you, and they see that you're the establishment. And even though it's not true, you're creating an environment where people will believe that Donald Trump is the anti-establishment. And these people going after progressive or Muslim or various people who are running for office will give them a certain amount of gravitas, a certain amount of street cred from the people that are out here saying, I'm hurting, and the political class won't do anything for me. Well, I'll fix them. I'll vote for this guy.
So just to bring it to our viewers right now, we are following the Zohran Mamdani New York City Mayoral race with Andrew Cuomo and Sliwa. And I just wanted to give our audience a breakdown of where the polling stands right now. So according to aggregate polling from late October, early November, Mamdani sits at 45 to 46%. Cuomo sits at about 31 to 33%, and Sliwa is about 16%. We also had record, almost, if it's not record breaking, it's very close to it in a very long time, about 735,000 early votes cast, and we are expecting that tonight there will be, I think it's about 1.5 million or 1.8 million votes cast, so another breaking number. And we also saw from the Mamdani campaign that they are on the precipice of breaking records for the amount of doors that they've knocked on, and even in 24-hour period, he has about 100,000 or more volunteers that have joined him, which is more volunteers than some candidates get even votes. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on where we are with the New York City mayoral race. And I wanted to ask a question, which is, what does it say about where the establishment stands when the best candidate that they've been able to bring forward is somebody like Andrew Cuomo?
Well, I think what it really shows is that he is the best representation of him. It's not that that's the best they can do. Really, I would look at it differently. He is an accurate representation of the political class that is running running the Democratic Party right now, in that, he has a history of he comes from a family that is a political power family. So we've got that kind of family dynasty thing going on, the old club that you have to be a member of the club or the right family. There's a history of corruption. There's a history of people being unhappy. And basically what we see with him is this: the voters don't want him, but the political class wants him. When we look at what happened with the Democrats in 2024 with Kamala Harris, the people didn't even really get an opportunity to select a candidate. And then the party was upset because the people didn't vote for the candidate that the political class selected. So to me, this is he's an accurate representation. He was selected by the political class. He is a member of the political class, and he has a history of governing in a manner that the people are unhappy with. He's their guy, and he's the right guy for them, and he should lose.
I mean, he had to resign as governor 4 years ago because of the sexual harassment allegations, and now he's back, and it's just, this is where I think maybe what you're saying is true. He may be the proper reflection of who he's representing.
Yes, and what you end up is a ruling class that's befuddled. They all come together and they all agree and they say, oh, this is perfect. It kind of reminds me, I could go anywhere. I could go to the Ukraine conflict. I could go to any of the issues in the Middle East where the ruling class comes together and they say, oh, this is a great deal. Let's present it to the resistance. Let's present it to the Russians. Let's present it to the Chinese, whoever it is that they see in an adversarial position. They get together themselves and they make a decision without any input from anyone else and say, this is a great decision we've made. Let's put this decision forward. In this instance, it's Andrew Cuomo. And the decision flops. And whether it's the Russians or whether it's the Muslim community and the Muslim resistance in the Middle East, or whether it's the people here, they put together, give us Kamala Harris, whoever, and the people say that's not what we want, mainly because we haven't had a say in it. We want to say, we want democracy. And so this is what you have with, to me, he's just the latest iteration of Kamala Harris. We're going to put someone out there that we think should win. Go ahead and vote for him. And when Cuomo gets blown out, which I think is most likely to happen, will they look in the mirror? Will they re-examine? Oh, perhaps we made a mistake. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Instead, they'll be furious at the voters. They'll say, well, these voters, I don't know what's wrong with them. They won't vote for the people. These insolent peasants, how dare we suffer their existence? And they have the nerve not to vote for who we tell them to vote for. That's the attitude that they have, and people are getting sick of it. And now I think this will be Zohran Mamdani, the personification of this fury that people have towards the ruling elite. And I'm looking forward to young anti-Zionists, progressive candidates running in the midterms and primarying some of these conservative Zionist dinosaurs in the Democratic Party who desperately need to lose.
So we have joining us right now Dr. Fawzia Afzal Khan. She's a visiting professor in gender and sexuality studies at Princeton University. She's also at a watch party for the Zohran Mamdani campaign. And she is a trailblazer in examining gender, faith, and politics and how they intersect. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us.
I hope we can get her on. I realized that
like
she's at a watch party.
There may be some technical issues on her side. We were hoping to get some live feed from the watch party, but we'll come back to that. You know, you've spoken a lot about, you know, Mamdani and representing justice, standing up for what people believe in, and really touching, being able to grasp the needs of the people. Where, like you said, you know, a lot of times we see the political class, the predator class, they get together, they decide what's good for the people, and then they're shocked when people push back or just are not interested in what they're bringing forward. Mamdani's been unapologetic with naming it a genocide, but he's also done something else, which is he's tried to keep the focus on what he's running for and his campaign is about, which is New York. So when all the candidates were standing on stage asking where would they want to visit, and they were all saying Israel, Israel, he said, listen, I'm staying here in New York. This is what I'm elected for. This is my focus. And I think it really triggered something in people's head where it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are our mayors visiting another country? What does that have to do with that? And not just any country, but a country that's committing genocide, and we could see it with our own eyes.
Yes.
And
well,
I
I
see
think
we
that,
have actually Dr. Fawzia joined us
go.
already. Dr. Fawzia, thank you for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum. Very nice to join all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Finally. Yeah, it's a little crazy out here. I'm at the backyard bar here in Lower Manhattan, and there is a watch party, and there's a lot of noise in the background, but I've stepped out, so hopefully we can communicate. But yeah, it is a turning point. I've been listening to all of the speakers, and I think certainly your last speaker makes a very good point that, you know, one of the turning points is that the narrative has changed so sharply, and that in New York City, with such a large percentage of Jewish voters, that almost half of them, certainly young Jewish voters, are turning out to vote for. They have been campaigning for Zohran Mamdani. That tells you a lot about the discourse at the national level, really, that has changed. Because as a professor, I have seen this incredible change in the almost 4 decades that I have been teaching at the university level. And I honestly, after October 7, 2023, what I saw in my classroom, what I'm seeing outside the classrooms, what I'm seeing in my students, both at the State University where I'm tenured and also now at Princeton, it is nothing short of remarkable. And these are the people, you know, these are people of all faiths, ethnicities, genders, sexualities. You know, they're out there, and they have been in encampments, as we know. They have put their own futures on the line regarding this changing narrative of Israel-Palestine. And I think that is one of the biggest selling points of Mamdani, that for the first time at this level, and in New York City of all places, we have seen a mayoral candidate unafraid to state that he will arrest Netanyahu if he comes to this city, that he has no intention of visiting Israel. When he was asked that ridiculous question, because he is a mayor for New York City. So, you know, he makes this point about staying true to local politics, which is why he would be elected, but at the same time standing for social, economic, political justice. And that justice demands, you know, yes, rent stabilization, affordable housing for New York City dwellers, and at the same time, that same social justice message, which is appealing so much, especially to young voters and voters across the aisle, is that he is not going to say the same old rubbish about how Israel has to be protected at all costs, even when in front of the world, it has been committing genocide and continues to do so. Which is why I think he is definitely going to win tonight. No matter what Trump says, no matter what his minions say they look highly idiotic, you know, and you can see that they are trying to throw the wool in everybody's eyes. I mean, telling people to vote for a Democratic sexual harasser like Cuomo. I mean,
Yes,
these are
Dr. Fauci,
Republicans.
I
Ridiculous.
did want to talk to you about this Cuomo's comeback and what impact it's had on women voters in New York City. When they see a person who has been accused of sexual harassment, where nursing home deaths have occurred under his watch, what are the women in New York City saying?
Oh, I think it's very clear. What I've seen is simply that, the only women who are not affected or who still are going to vote for Cuomo are from the same cohort, demographic, political beliefs, which are highly corrupt political beliefs that have supported Trump, another sexual harasser. In fact, Trump is a rapist. And the fact that women voted for him, those women only who don't care about that, who care only to protect or are part of the 1% who want to keep the ruling elites, including themselves and their menfolk in power. And that is, that percentage is shrinking. Certainly the women that I know and talk to, which includes my students, that includes women that, average women who live of all different backgrounds, races, and ethnicities, they are with women like Letitia James. They admire her for trying to bring, lawsuits against Trump and against people who have criticized people like Cuomo and have brought, these women who have been harassed by him into the limelight, as to accuse him, and he stands credibly accused. He has paid them off. He has tried at any rate to pay off and not have this conversation, but he has not succeeded. And so I think the majority of women, honestly, and good thinking, upright, righteous men see through this politics of complete cynicism, and they are not voting, certainly not going to vote for Cuomo. No.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to, our three guests over here. So suppose Mamdani wins, and now we've got a Trump administration, and New York City is Trump's base. How difficult is Trump going to make it for Mamdani to rule the city?
Well, I would say this. I think Trump. It will be difficult because for Donald Trump to do a lot, because there are legal restrictions. There are things that are the federal government is required to do for various states and municipalities, and any attack on Mamdani physically, economically, would be an attack on New York City, and Donald Trump's from New York City. I think Donald Trump is a lot of talk. I think he's a lot more mouth than anything else. And I don't think he'll be able to do a lot. And, and I've been through this before in debates with conservatives, and we get back to this contradiction where the conservative says, look, I think that we should have federalism where government is dealt with at the lowest possible level, right? States' rights. The state should decide, the county, the city, or whatever, right? And then the state or the county or the city says, we want to vote for this guy. Well, never mind. We changed now. We don't believe so Donald Trump, apparently, if Mamdani wins, he's going to change his mind about federalism and about governing at the lowest possible level, which means it's all a fraud. It is all, simply rhetoric. But when it comes down to it, it comes back to the ideological battle. He's the left, or in my opinion, even more so, it's because the Zionists hate Mamdani, they hate Muslims, and the pressure of the Miriam Adelsons and all of the other Bill Ackermans and all of these other people who are on the phone with Trump saying, oh my gosh, when this guy wins, we're going to have anti-Zionists all over the place running. And he's right. And their fear and their horror, but it's not going to save them, because they will be held accountable for their actions politically, I believe, over the next over the next election cycle. They're trying to avoid that, and it's unavoidable. One other thing I want to say, there is a paradoxical thing there's a weird paradoxical effect with Zohran Mamdani with the discussion about him saying, he's saying, okay, I'm going to focus on New York. In that, New York is kind of the American home of economic Zionism. There's all this Zionist power. There's, more Jews in New York, probably, in the New York area than Israel, or close to as many. So even when you talk about local politics in the context of a city like New York, it obviously applies to foreign policy because of the relationship between Zionism and the economic elite, at minimum, the economic power in New York City. There's no way you can disassociate foreign policy relative to Zionism and politics in New York City at the highest levels.
And I think, if I may just add to that and say that you can do that at any level in US politics. I hear this kind of talk, for example, from people running in local town and city elections. Well, we have to focus on what they call the local in a very narrowly defined sense. But in fact, as you've pointed out, the local or the domestic and the international have always been conjoined. And when it comes to the issue of Zionism and Zionist funding, we see that they have affected every race, up and down the ballot. We saw, for example, in Westchester County, which is where I'm from, last year, what they did again, to defeat Jamal Bowman, for example. We never had a local congressman election that is funded, to that extreme as his was, just to defeat him. And so to create and to divide that kind, to create that kind of line, or to state, oh no, this is all about local, is absolutely a way to throw dust into people's eyes and not have us make the connections between local and global politics. The glocal, as my good late friend Nawal El-Sadawi of Egypt would say, it's all glocal. There is no such thing as purely local politics. And I think Zohran is really making that point in a very smart way. He is standing for New York City issues, but those issues, economic, political, racial, generational and cross-religious lines, they connect to the world at large and what we are seeing everywhere else. And honestly, the pigeons have been coming home to roost, as we say. And I think he's the man to take us across to the other side, where politics can once again come to have some meaning in people's lives. That is why the youth vote is so huge. I mean, it's over 130% increase in youth voting in early voting just from the last election alone. Mayoral election. So that I mean, this tells you a lot. You'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind to pretend that there isn't this kind of sea change. And so no matter what happens tonight, I think what Zohran and his campaign have shown is that change is not only possible, it is here, it is on its way, and it's gonna be just the start of a big turnaround. At least, that's what I think and I hope.
So let's take a moment to see what the man says as he casts his own vote. So let's go to that clip.
Today is Election Day. It is a day that we have been dreaming of for more than a year. And as much as things have changed over the course of this campaign, in many ways, it is the same campaign we launched on October 23rd. A campaign that looks to transform the most expensive city in the United States of America into one that's affordable for each and every person that calls it home. And I'm so thankful to the more than 100,000 volunteers who have brought us to this point, where we are on the brink of making history in our city, on the brink of saying goodbye to a politics of the past, a politics that tells you what it can't do and really what it means to say is what it won't do, and to usher in a new era in this city where we understand that we do not get to choose the scale of the crisis we face. We simply get to choose the manner in which we respond. And it is time to finally respond with the urgency that New Yorkers deserve. An urgency that reckons with these same New Yorkers having had to face rent hike after rent hike, year after year. These same New Yorkers having to wait for buses that never come. These same New Yorkers that have to move out of this city when they want to raise a family. And these same New Yorkers who have grown tired of going on Street Easy to find apartments in Jersey City because that's the only place they could consider affording. It is time now for a new day in our politics. And it is an honor and a privilege to be a part of a movement that has fought every single day to bring that day forward. And today, we have until 9 p.m. to say that our time has come. Thank you very much.
Oh, what's going on there? They are now closed. Yes, the polls are now closed. Sorry, there's a lot of excitement here.
Yeah, the polls are now closed. Hopefully, we'll start seeing some results coming in. I really want to thank all our viewers for watching us. Please make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. This really helps independent voices like ours be able to do the work that we do to bring you coverage in a way that mainstream media and traditional media have not been doing. So we really appreciate all your support. We appreciate your viewerships. And what we want to do right now is go to our... Actually, we're not going to be going to do that now. But one of the things that happened was Andrew Cuomo was on a radio show earlier, and he was asked about Trump's endorsement of him. You know, Trump said if it's between a bad Democrat and a communist, he would choose the bad Democrat every time. And when Cuomo was asked about this on the radio show, I think it was Hot 97.5, he just hung up. He didn't even have an answer ready for him. So one of the commentators I was listening to today said this was really election interference by the president of the United States when it comes to the New York mayoral elections.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, just from the perspective of politics, every politician and every person, president, if the president wanted to come to New York and, on the stump for Andrew Cuomo, I mean, legally, he'd be able to do that. And I wouldn't be opposed to it, because that would probably help Zohran Mamdani win even more. But, one of the things, I'm a person as an independent, and the problem I have as an independent is the particularly when it comes to foreign policy and Zionism, that the parties are too much alike. And I think Donald Trump saying, okay, look, you know what? There's a person who was selected by the political class in the Democratic Party. I'm fine with him. He shouldn't be fine with him, and they shouldn't be fine with Trump. We should have a contrast between the parties. But when you see Trump say, yeah, Cuomo, Schumer, whoever, I'll take them over someone who says I'm not for Zionism, and perhaps, we should at least let people get on a bus and go across town to work and not have to, spend every dime they have. Just again, it shows us the poisonous nature of politics. It shows us the incestuous nature of these two parties and why they have to be either changed or smashed to pieces, one of the two. And I don't say that, kinetically. I mean, politically speaking, that if Donald Trump and Donald Trump's, choice are the two options, there's really only one option.
That's
you're
I wanted to ask our two guests, Dr. Ahmed and
I think she's
Dr.
muted
Afro
also.
Khan.
No, I think I'm back on.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
So my question is, so we saw in this election a lot of targeting of South Asians as well, a lot of anti-South Asian bigotry, the eating with the hands, the idea that his mother is an Indian movie producer and his father is a college professor. So I'd like to get your comments on what you observed, both as you in New York City and from afar. What are your comments on this anti-South Asian specific
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere, I don't think it's accurate. I think it's fewer than that, but almost one in every 10 New Yorkers is Muslim, and many of them are South Asians. I don't know if the figure is correct exactly, but it's large, right? We have a very large South Asian population, large Muslim population. And what's happening? Whoa, what's going on?
There are some results in actually, which I should probably say, which is why probably people are cheering. So the first, I guess, batch of results are in. Zohran Mamdani is at 51.5% with 422,000 votes in. Andrew Cuomo's at 39.7% with 324,000 and change. And then Curtis Sliwa is at 8% with 65,000. So right now, Zohran Mamdani is ahead with 97,000 votes. And this is the latest updates from the polls closing.
Okay, thank you for filling that in. But in terms of this kind of eating with your hands and they were trying, it seems to me, rather desperately, and this is establishment Democrats just as much as Republicans, and this is why there really is no difference between the parties as far as I'm concerned, and I'm hoping that once Zohran gets elected, maybe something can change and we can get the Democratic Party, or at least its more progressive wing, back on track and more central than the other conservative and so-called moderate liberal factions, because honestly there is no difference between them and their Republican cohort, and so I think this was just whatever could stick. Let's throw it at them, and all it revealed, this kind of, oh look, he eats with his hands, oh look, his mother is Indian, oh look, he's gonna be cheering if there's another 9/11. These are Islamophobic comments, they are anti-South Asian comments, they are anti-brown comments. I mean, and it's so transparent that these are racist, ignorant comments trying to distance civilized, i.e. white, Western American people from essentially people who have built up not only this city, but this country, who have come in through various waves of immigration and who are as American as apple pie now. So these are distancing political tactics that have failed, and people were laughing. The stuff about hands, eating with the hands, I mean, I just love that, because in fact, there's a friend of mine who is a fixture on the theater scene in downtown New York City, and she wrote this whole hilarious thing on Facebook about how she will now eat with her hands all the time, just to kind of be in the face of people who think that is somehow uncivilized and un-American. And she came up, as she pointed out, don't Americans, whatever they mean by Americans, i.e. not South Asians, don't they eat pizza with their hands? So these are really degraded tactics, and I think everybody saw them for what they were, just desperate tactics of people hoping and wanting and trying against all odds to defeat the freshest, most original, charming, brilliant, policy-focused. The only person in this race who talked about policy, not about making disgusting racist comments about his opponents.
Dr. Fawzia, we actually have a package we want to play because of your comments talking about eating with hands, which, like you said, it's just such a bizarre attack. But let's play the package right now for you.
Biryani, the soul of South Asia. From Karachi to Dhaka, Cape Town to Kuala Lumpur. And yes, on the street carts of Manhattan, New York. Some eat it with spoons, but many proudly eat it with their fingers. Across South Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, eating with your hands is more than tradition. It's intimacy. It's gratitude. It's culture. For Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, asked them to wash their hands before touching food. So, when Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic candidate for New York mayorship, was seen eating biryani with his hands, the right-wingers exploded in outrage. Mega politicians and online culture warriors didn't just criticize, they dehumanized. They called him dirty, backwards, unfit for office. But beneath the outrage was something deeper, a fear that someone could carry his culture proudly and refuse to conform. What was really being said was, you don't belong. Your ways are beneath us. Assimilate or be erased.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation.
For billions, eating with hands isn't primitive. It's respectful. It's communal. It connects them to food, to people, to history. Forks and knives did not arrive in South Asia naturally. They came with colonialism, not as convenience, but as conquest. They weren't just utensils, they were weapons of cultural erasure, signs of civility forced onto those branded as savage. So when Zohran Mamdani eats with his hands, he's not just enjoying biryani, he's reclaiming dignity.
Before I give our guests an opportunity to comment on the video, I wanted to just give our viewers the latest update again. If you're joining us on election results that have come in on the New York mayoral elections. So Zohran, right now there's 36%, 38% of the votes are in. 51.2% has gone to Zohran Mamdani with 436,535 votes. He is ahead of Andrew Cuomo, but not by 95,000. Actually, that number has grown since the last update. Andrew Cuomo sits at 40% with 341,041 votes, and Curtis Sliwa is a distant third at 8% with 68,000 and change. So back to our guest. Any comments you have about the latest video that we just played?
Yes, and this was, I have a daughter who's around 30. And so, we're very close, and I, talk to her all the time. And I remember, when she graduated from college, and I went to the college and I looked and I'm like, wow, it kind of looks like a rainbow here. So here's my point. What we're seeing is two parties that have 80-year-old people running. Not that there's anything wrong with being 80. I'm just saying the fact that they're all 80 says they remember, they're hearkening back to a time when you could use these racial dog whistles, or in this instance more like an air raid silence. But you could use these racial dog whistles and wink and say, that person's a whatever, fill in the blank, and that the voters would kind of wink say, yeah, I'm not going to vote for him. People my daughter's age, they don't even get it. When those kinds of comments to them just right over their head, they don't even get it. So the people that are left in this country that really, and I don't mean just age, because again, I have a lot of friends that are seniors in my age and older who certainly would say, come on, let's move on. We're not here anymore. So we're looking at political dinosaurs. That's what we're looking at, who think that'll work. It is desperation. It won't work anymore. I just look at them and I say, it's a sad state of affairs. That's all you got? Now, racial dog whistles, you are guaranteeing yourselves a loss. When people can't pay their bills, and the best you can do is say some guy's eating with his hands, and people are like, well, I can't eat with anything because I can't afford to eat. Yeah. I'll vote. I don't care what he's eating with. I can't afford to eat. They don't get that.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add one small comment to that, which is that I really appreciated towards the end of the video that you showed us, that you shared with us, the comment around colonialism and, the different forms in which European ideologies and manners and what they considered to be civilization was imposed on the world that they colonized and the peoples they colonized in the name of civilization, which we know was actually savagery, because it was done in order. They were the savages who came in to our countries and killed and looted and behaved in barbaric ways. So the kind of gesture that Zohran makes, right, or made by eating with his hands, and as the commentary was also pointing out, is actually a gesture of decolonization. It is an in-your-face, right? It's an in-your-face to all of these racist people claiming to talk in the name of civilization. But what they're doing is trying to put other people down, and he's having none of it. And he's saying, I will show you, right, that what you claim is not civilized behavior is in fact beautiful, communal, a gesture of respect, a reclamation of dignity and of ways of living, cultural ways of living that, don't care what you think. You guys with your really repressed behavior, eating little bites on your forks and with your forks and your knives and your spoons. This is earthy, eating with my hands. This is a gesture of light and of extreme comfort with oneself, because you are not afraid that you're going to make yourself look bad in front of anyone. This shows that you accept yourself and that other people at your table who are sharing that table also accept you, also love you. And if you're going to drop food on your shirt, so be it. Who the hell cares?
I really appreciate that point that you made. And I think that was something genius of what he also did after the Islamophobic attacks against him and that speech that he made. And I'm sure a lot of his advisors told him not to focus on it, but to focus on his Muslim identity and talk about the Islamophobia and how Muslims are living in shadows in the largest city in the world and how they contribute to that city and are part and parcel of that city. That was absolutely genius. And to talk, and now that I look at it from a broader point of view as well, he drew sustained attention from the global right. At least 26 international politicians, ambassadors, and other government officials from Argentina, France. We heard from Germany, Netherlands, Canada, India, Israel, Slovenia, Sweden, Spain, and the UK. Many of these countries who were colonizers spoke out against him. And he seems to have become this global lightning rod that has a sort of, and it's really interesting to watch that how this one city's mayoral election, much like what happened to perhaps Sadiq Khan in London a couple of years ago, but Sadiq Khan did not take on that persona. Whatever they attacked him with, Mamdani seems to be taking that and saying, okay, keep the attacks coming. This is who I am. So to discuss this and much more, I'd like to invite our next guest. Do we have?
And I'm going to have to leave because I got another interview I have to do. So I certainly appreciate you inviting me and look forward to having an opportunity to talk to you again. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to run now.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here, Garland.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Good work. Bye.
It's been wonderful to be with all of you. I'd like to stay on, but I have a lot of friends in there. And I think soon I will get in there once the results more results are called in. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. But I really appreciated your comments. Those are and that's really important to point out the way that Mamdani has become a lightning rod across the world, not just in this mayoral race. And I think that's telling us a great deal about the moment that we're in. And I think, to go back to your comment from your earlier guest, it just shows that there is a very strong divide now between the old, the sort of leftovers of the vestiges of colonial believers, and those of us who absolutely feel that we have, those are politics of the past, and that new paths have to be forged. And I think we're really at that dividing line, and so it's a very exciting moment. Absolutely.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Assalamualaikum, Fozia Baji. Finally, you caught me. I'm here.
Are you there? Oh my God, it's so nice to see you after such a long time.
I know. That's why I wanted you to join the show, because it's been a while since I saw you. And you often scold me for not staying in touch. So I said, let's just bring her on the show.
That's great.
I listen to everything.
We have a long history, and so it's nice.
Yeah. So I've known Fozia Zohran for a long time.
It's great to have you back on the show, Dr. Ahmed.
She's one of my mentors, and so it's wonderful to have heard her speak today. So thank you, Fozia Baji.
Okay, great that Dr. Ahmed is back on screen. I would really like you to, we talked about decolonization and the remnants of this in this mayoral race. So I really would like to get your commentary on that. And one other question that I've really observing this race, and you see the Hindutva and Zionist nexus joining together against Mamdani. Would love to get your comments on that, and especially how, what mental gymnastics does it take for someone who follows Hindutva ideology to go against Mamdani while he's being attacked for being South Asian? Make it make sense for me.
So just before you go ahead, Professor, I wanted to introduce our next guest, which is Mark Lance, who's the Emirati Professor of Philosophy, former Professor, Chair, and Founder Program on Justice and Peace for Georgetown University. Mark Lance, thank you for joining us. Just wanted to make sure we introduce you and get an opportunity to say that. I also wanted to, again, sorry, before you go on with to answer the question, just the latest update on the polls right now. 52% of the votes are in. Mamdani's at 49.6% with 580,000 plus votes in. He's 94,000 votes ahead of Andrew Cuomo, who's at 41.5% with 485,000, close to 486,000 votes. And Curtis Sliwa is a distant third with 8.1% of the vote. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so I also wanted to first say one mentor has just left, Professor Fozia Zohran, and another one has arrived, Professor Mark Lance. And, I've known him for a long time, and his involvement, particularly in the Palestine Solidarity Movement for decades now, is so admirable. So I'm really glad he could spend some time with us today as well. And I get to see him because in these days we don't get to see each other too much. So I really wanted to come on. I've learned so much from him. So let me first address the question that was posed about Zionists, Hindutva, and Mamdani, and we can turn it over to Mark. So I'll do that very quickly. Look, I think we always should not be surprised by forces that long, of course, predate this campaign of Zohran Mamdani in terms of the demonization of Muslims, the Islamophobic rhetoric, in order to justify the projects of both of these countries, whether it's Zionist Israel or Hindutva India, and especially kind of the more reactionary, extreme developments of these countries. In India, BJP, RSS, etc., their victories, the complete wiping out of the opposition party, Congress Party, and what we see in Israel today, right? I mean, it was never great, but we see that kind of the extreme form of the reactionary end of the spectrum. And so I think that it's it's obviously horrendous and catastrophic for the victims of this, of what's going on. But this alliance has been going on for a while in the United States. And I fear, and here's the other thing I'll say, I fear that many of us Muslims may start to see this kind of lobbying model of these groups as like an effective model to kind of to be a counterweight. And I don't think it works that way at all. I mean, the Zionist lobby works because then the United States has used Israel, certainly throughout the Cold War, for its interests in the Middle East. Indians, the Indian, quote unquote, there's no Indian lobby per se, but Indian IT workers have been exploited and used extensively. And India, once again, we thought that the US, a lot of diasporic Pakistanis became quite happy because Pakistanis shot down 2 Indian planes, and now we have a good image again. And the next thing we know, U.S. signs a defense pact with India. So the point is that we have to be very careful in terms of the way our modus operandi in terms of our activism to bring about change. And I think that these forces, well documented in the massive amount of kind of money that was been transferred to a lot of the Sindhutva stuff in India, traced from the Gujarat massacres, of course, when Modi was the chief minister of Gujarat, and where a lot of the money was coming from, Indians in the United States. And and it became only kind of a natural alliance. In fact, I always say now that, the American politicians in private, they may be cursing Netanyahu out, but Modi is a real devotee of Netanyahu's. Modi is a real devotee. I think Netanyahu knows his only real friend is Narendra Modi right now. But again, the geopolitics are shifting so rapidly here. But long story short, I mean, Netanyahu's old plan about speaking of Islamic terrorism and etc., this just became very convenient, especially post 9/11, and which was not just convenient for, say, the United States and Israel, but also places like China, Russia, India and Kashmir, and so on.
So just the latest updates on the polling. Some more numbers have come in. Zohran Mamdani is at 49.6%. He's at 677,615. His lead has grown to 109,000 ahead of Andrew Cuomo, who's been eating away at Curtis Sliwa's numbers. Curtis Sliwa's gone down a little bit. Cuomo is at 41.6%. Professor, thank you for joining us, and would love to hear your thoughts about this New York mayoral elections.
Well, first, hello, Junaid. Great to see you again. It's been not too long. So, to me, what's most fascinating about this election is that it's absolutely been a grassroots campaign. Both political parties have done everything they can to prevent Mamdani from winning. The Democrats, in some ways, perhaps more strongly than the Republicans in New York. It's important to say he's not proposing anything socialist. He might, in his heart of hearts, be a socialist, but he's not calling to nationalize any industries or anything of this sort. He's calling for what in Europe would count as moderate social democratic reforms, right? Modest tax increases on the wealthy, some provision of social services like free mass transit, improved funding for education, some modest housing rent control. So all of this is opposed by the sort of core of both political parties in the United States that are completely beholden to slightly different sectors of wealthy capitalist billionaire class. What's been, as Junaid said, I've been involved in the Palestine Solidarity Movement since the first Intifada. And anyone in the last 40 years in the United States who's remotely consistent about supporting human rights and international law is going to be attacked broadly by the press, by the leadership of the parties. And in the case of Israel, you'll be accused of being anti-Semitic. And it's failed miserably for them this time. And I think that's a sign of a very deep change in the United States. Of course, in a sort of the immediate cause of that change has been the ongoing genocide in the last 2 years in Gaza, and that has horrified, especially a lot of young people. But the ability to build quickly the kind of response to that, the protests on campuses across the country, the massive turnouts in civil disobedience actions that we've seen, oftentimes led by Jewish organizations, it's worth saying, that comes from a combination of that immediate spur of a horrifying human rights attack with a background of organizing and infrastructure that's been building in this country for 35 or 40 years, right? At least since the first Intifada. And as energy comes up, there's organizations already in place to plug people into. Muslim organizations, Arab organizations, leftist organizations, progressive organizations, and Jewish organizations. And these were all ready to jump onto this candidacy in New York City. We've seen that among Jews under 40, the majority support Mamdani in New York. And it's only a slightly majority for older Jewish New Yorkers. Groups like Jewish Voice for Peace have just taken their already existing organizational infrastructure and turned it into a contribution to the grassroots on the street work of this campaign. And so you're seeing a broad change in the US in terms of views around Palestine. The masks kind of came off with the invasion of Gaza. It's not that things were better substantially before. There was massive, I think I might have been in this march. There was, a deeply entrenched system of apartheid before this. There's ethnic cleansing. There have been invasions before this, but they were often covered over with a veneer of civilized rhetoric that played well with some sectors in the United States. The current, as Junaid said, the current utterly reactionary, openly racist, maximalist regime that's in charge in Israel now isn't even pretending anymore. And I think there was a kind of hubris there that this would not cause large numbers of people to move toward the Palestinian movement. And they were wrong. Of course, Palestine is not the core of Mamdani's message. The core of his message is the material conditions under which New Yorkers live, especially the absolutely crushing price of real estate and rent in New York. But the absurd attacks on him as anti-Semitic simply for calling out crimes against humanity and saying that a state should care for all of its citizens, or specious and intentional misrepresentations of slogans, saying that jihad somehow means murdering people when it means, struggle. I've been hearing the phrase globalize the Intifada for 40 years. It means we struggle across the world for justice. That's, what this means. And everyone knows this. And they tried the same old tactics. And interestingly, it just made things, I think, worse for the opposition, for Cuomo and everyone else. So it's been absolutely fascinating to watch this. I did not predict.
So I just want to let our viewers know, sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
please.
Mamdani has won the New York City mayoral race. It is over. He has won the race. He's already been predicted to win. So congratulations to Zohran Mamdani for winning the mayoralty of the largest city in the United States, New York.
That's so exciting.
Congratulations, New York City. You just said something, Dr. Land, something that was that now given the New York mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, when you talked about organizing that was already in place, anti-war, Jewish organizers that were pro-Palestinian freedom, already being in place against this genocide for the past, first for the past 40 years, but specifically this past 2 years. One of the things that I also have observed is this was the first election where pro-Palestinian freedom PACs and Muslim PACs, political action committees, were also active now. They had been organizing for the past 2 years, and this was the first time where money was being organized in the Muslim community, in the pro-Palestine community, and supporting Zohran's run for office. So this is where, we talk about this a lot at Justice for All, about organizing rather than just mobilizing people on the street. So it is absolutely fascinating to watch this. So now that it's been announced that he has won, let's take the conversation to what will a Zohran Mamdani city look like? Who's with him? He doesn't have a lot of experience, and this was one of the things that folks would attack him with in running a city like New York City. So what do you expect from him? Where do you think he'll move to the center, where he might have to let go of some of his platforms that he ran on? Who is supporting him in the sense of who is he going to assign major jobs? So yes, would love to hear from you all about that.
These are the hard questions. These are the hard questions, right? Because all the forces that were opposed to him winning are now going to be committed to him failing. Right?
Right.
The capitalists are going to try to make him fail. The billionaires are going to try to make him fail. And it's going to be very difficult. And I think it's very, very crucially, right? Where's his source of power? His source of power, as we were both saying, is at the grassroots. It's with the people that have been pulled together. It's the coalitions you're talking about that are coming together around principles rather than specific identities, right? If someone is Jewish and progressive and believes people deserve to eat and believes human rights matter, and someone is Muslim and believes these things, they're on the same side. It doesn't matter. Religion doesn't matter. Ethnicity doesn't. Those are the people that have to stay mobilized, because without it, he's got very powerful forces working against him, both the wealthy. He's already had to compromise on police issues, right? He was proposing quite modest criticisms of obvious abuses by the New York Police Department. But the New York Police Union can shut the city down anytime they want to. They can make the crime rate rise anytime they want to, simply by ignoring things or offering subtle encouragement to people. It's an enormously powerful, heavily armed interest group in New York City. And he's already had to apologize for some comments that, to my mind, were completely reasonable comments he made in the past. He'll surely have to compromise in other ways. That's what it is to pursue politics through the electoral system, right? I work with grassroots organizing. I work on the street and then also as an academic. I don't have to make those compromises. I can say what I take to be true. I can stick to my principles. A person who's working in government can't always do that. And what one has to figure out is which of those people in government are actually our allies, are actually people we can work with, and which are going to sell out along the way. If we recall, Barack Obama also started as a community organizer, but in my view, completely dropped that side of his life when he became president. I don't think Mamdani will, but he needs the pressure from the ground. Right. That is how he can respond when people demand things of him. He can say, yes, but the city will break down if people will shut things down if I do that. So you're going to have to compromise with me.
And it's going to be fascinating to watch Gen Z and this cancel culture that prevails in this generation. It's going to be a fascinating watch. So we do have a package that we'd like to show you all on Mamdani's victory, announcing the new New York City mayor.
The city that never sleeps, that carries The city that never sleeps, that carries 8 million souls and speaks 100 languages, has chosen a Muslim to lead it. New York loves Zohran Mamdani. He is the first Muslim, the first South Asian to be elected mayor of America's largest city. A city with the second largest Jewish community in the world after Tel Aviv. Zohran Mamdani was outspent by 1-4. Billionaires joined forces to defeat him. But he loves New York, and New York loves him. 90,000 volunteers changed history. But his path to this moment was brutal. From the day he entered the race, he faced a flood of racist and Islamophobic attacks. New York had never seen a campaign so vicious, so personal, so cruel. MAGA trolls compared him to the planes that struck the Twin Towers. Right-wing commentators called him the jihadist candidate.
You are clearly right now in the front-running position. I can tell because they've gone 9/11 on you.
This is not a job for a first-timer. Any day, you could have a hurricane, you have, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic.
Any given morning, there's a crisis. And people's lives are at stake. God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?
Yeah, I could. He'd be cheering.
It's another problem.
Hundreds of rabbis in New York signed statements branding him a threat to Jewish safety. They preached in synagogues, urging congregations not to vote for him. But 40% of Jewish voters said they would vote for Mamdani. Trump issued statement after statement, calling Mamdani a communist, saying he was terrible for the country, joking that he could one day become a communist president of the United States.
Maybe he'll run for president in 4 years. You have a communist president.
Even Elon Musk joined the mockery, tweeting that Zohran was the future of the Democratic Party. The hate was relentless. But Mamdani didn't bend. He didn't soften his voice.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long we have been told to ask for less than that, and to be satisfied with whatever little we receive. No more. For as long as we have lived, we have known that no matter what anyone says, there are still certain forms of hate acceptable in this city today. Islamophobia is not seen as inexcusable. One can incite violence against our mosques and know that condemnation will never come. Elected officials in this city can sell T-shirts calling for my deportation without fear of any accountability. The consequences are stark. More than 1 million Muslim New Yorkers exist in this city only to be made to feel as if guests in our own home. No more.
He stood before the microphones and spoke of Islamophobia, not as an abstract idea, but as a wound he carried since childhood.
Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion. I will always remember the disdain I faced, the way my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan of attacking it. And since I was very young, I have known that I was spared the worst of it.
Zohran Mamdani's father, Professor Mahmoud Mamdani, wrote a book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. Zohran Mamdani turned out to be a great Muslim, a good neighbor, and an excellent citizen.
The bigger question is whether we are willing to say goodbye to something much larger. It is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the words were said by a Republican or by a Democrat. We know only that it was spoken in the language of the politics of this city. In an era of ever-diminishing bipartisanship, Islamophobia has emerged as one of the few areas of agreement.
He didn't hide his faith. He didn't whisper his name. He stood tall, prayed openly, and spoke about justice unapologetically.
I will not change who I am. I will not change how I eat. I will not change the faith that I am proud to belong to. But there is one thing I will change. I will no longer look for myself in the shadows. I will find myself in the light.
When hate came for him, he answered with dignity. When fear tried to define him, he redefined courage.
I mean, this is all the Republican Party has to offer. Cheap jokes about Islamophobia so as to not have to recognize what people are living through.
attempts to pit people's humanity against each other. And I think whether it's J.D. Vance or it's Andrew Cuomo, it is the same kind of politics. It's a politics of division.
Zohran Mamdani's victory is not just a triumph for people taking charge of their city. It is a moral awakening. It is the first crack in the architecture of Islamophobia. It is a message to every young Muslim who repetitively had to urge people to say their name correctly. Those who were told to stay invisible. It is a message saying, you do not need to hide anymore. Because a city that once feared your faith now trusts it to lead. Because this time, Islamophobia didn't win. America did.
So for those joining us, first of all, thank you for joining us for our special live election of the New York City Mayoral Elections. Zohran Mamdani is already the projected winner, so congratulations to Zohran Mamdani for his win. Right now, we're at 60% of votes that have been counted for. 49.6% so far has gone to Zohran Mamdani, who is 109,000 plus votes ahead of next Andrew Cuomo, who sits at 568,000 and 41.6%. Now, one of the very bizarre tweets that came in was from Governor Abbott from Texas, who threatened New Yorkers that would leave New York to go to live in Texas with tariffs. Any comments on how such a tariff could be enforced, or why Abbott would even want to penalize new residents?
It makes no sense at all. There's clear constitutional requirements that people cannot be constrained from traveling across states in the United States. And even if I don't even know what the notion of a tariff on a person means, I suppose that Abbott thought this was funny. But you know, if you look at the history of what he's been doing in Texas, both Islamophobic things, but you know, attacks on LGBT people, attacks on the poor, attacks on immigrants, attacks on brown people generally, it just fits into a pattern of racist abuse. That's not the kind of comment that one can take seriously.
Yeah, and as Mark says, I think that's probably the appropriate place for many of these billionaires to flee to. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is the kind of stuff we should get used to hearing at this point, now that he has won. And just to add on to what Mark was saying earlier and the question you asked, there will be immense pressures on Zohran now. And you know, Zohran, people that know him, etc., highly respect him, his character and everything. But when you get to this level of institutional power, particularly in a city like New York City, there will be a lot of pressures on him. And the only way that we know how to prevent those powers that be to crack down and dismantle your project is for all of these volunteers and this mass mobilization to continue. That they should not stop, and that they should continue on and on. I mean, this was the big example of the Obama thing. You know, everyone was so excited, huge movement, first black president, and that's it. Now you can go home. And no results of what was drone attacks, this, that, and the other. And so I think that this is a clear lesson learned that, of course, my dear mentor Mark knows very well. I mean, that these types of things, if you want to go on this, you know, there used to be this term, non-reformist reform pathway. Mark, you remember that from ZNet days. Yes. From ZNet days, but yeah, I mean, it's a continuous motion that one has to be in, that communities have to be in order to. I mean, I'm not saying in order to necessarily hold Zohran accountable, but of course, but to help Zohran as well in terms of what he wants to do. He needs that base to continue to be active and vocal.
Yeah. What I worry about right now, as someone who's covered the American Muslim community for almost 2 decades, is there are going to be increased attacks on our community. I would say to our Muslim community, for our mosques to be vigilant, to report, because whether it is something negative that happens or now something positive that has happened has inspired people across the country, when a Muslim is at the helm and under focus, the ripple effects is felt across the American Muslim community. So this is something that is, as instead of being able to enjoy this win, my experience is telling me that we will have to take this with a little bit of just to be, and I'd love to get your input on this.
And
Both of you, Professor.
before we hear from our guests, I just wanted to add to that we even heard Zohran talk about how a lot of the rhetoric, the Islamophobic, anti-Muslim rhetoric that has come out from politicians, from people in the media, there has been no accountability for it either. It's still an accepted form of, racism and bigotry. And I think this is where it becomes even more dangerous for Muslim people trying to enjoy, obviously, this victory for Zohran Mamdani, that it's not just people are saying it and it's widespread, but there's been no accountability, and it has, people don't lose their job or are ostracized or called out on it. It's just an accepted form of this sort of hate.
If I can just say briefly, this is the very bizarre phenomena. The post 9/11 Islamophobia, one would have thought that would slowly dissipate. In fact, it increased during the 2010s, etc. And now, once again, it gets recycled. So, this is just, it's deeply perplexing. Perhaps it shouldn't be. But yes, we have seen it again, full blown and normalized. And which would not be done with any other community. And so this is the sisters, the fear, apprehension, I think is completely justified, because I think that now that Mamdani has won an election in one of the most important cities in the world, you can expect a lot of people, powers that be, trying to do something, whatever that may be, to demonstrate how supposedly his victory is related to some type of crime, some type of terrorist action, or so on and so forth. I think we should be ready for that. I think we should be ready for that. And I do agree with the sister that's something that we have to be cautious about. Yeah, Mark, did you?
No, just one small disagreement. I don't think it's unique to Islamophobia is unique in this country, and I don't think it's unprecedented, right? The need to have some minority that was the demon has been around since the founding of this country, right? First of all, it was the native peoples of this continent who were portrayed as quite literally non-human, right? You had theologians saying they had no souls, that they were like beasts or possibly demons. You had demonization of African Americans, demonization of Japanese, of Germans. The need to, it's ultimately a need to divide the people who are being harmed by the economic policies of the wealthy and make us fight one another if they can, rather than stand together in our power and resist them. For the last 25 years, one of the core demonized groups, of course, has been Muslims, and that's our current fight. And I think you're absolutely right. There's a huge danger right now, right? This beautiful victory is taking place in a country that is pushing toward open fascism and white supremacy, right? The president has a private army in the massively expanded ICE that has a higher budget than most countries' entire military. Cities around the country, including my own, have been occupied by National Guard troops that have been nationalized by the president. Immigrants or people who someone suspects might be an immigrant are being grabbed off the street and arrested without charge, brutalized across the country. LGBT people are being demonized and attacked. This is the context in which this win happens. So of course, it's a huge risk, and violence is very likely to increase. And I think the real protection, we cannot look to the federal government to protect mosques. That's almost laughably absurd at this point. We have to look to the same thing that got this man elected, to the people of this country standing up. There was a wonderful incident, I think it was in Oklahoma, where a group of leftist, I'm going to say good old boys, right? I mean, just boys, guys with guns, showed up to a mosque to prevent white supremacists with guns from attacking it. And they formed a line in front of it and stood in solidarity. And, you know, that's sort of, I'm not necessarily saying we all need to pull guns out, but we need to stand in solidarity with each other to protect the vulnerable in this country, of which there are many, many groups, because you're absolutely right. There will surely be more violence. There will surely be more attacks, as the president is whipping this up with his, you know, ludicrous attacks on Mamdani.
So just the latest from the election results right now, 85% of the votes are in. Zohran Mamdani's lead has actually increased. He's at 50.5% of the vote. He's ahead of Andrew Cuomo by 175, actually over 175,000 votes. Andrew Cuomo sits at 41.4% with 797 and change of the votes. And Zohran has won Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx. Actually, the Bronx, he won over about 11%. In Brooklyn, he took over 20% lead. The only suburb that Andrew Cuomo won was Staten Island. Now, just a little bit about this.
Staten Island.
Surprise, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just a little note about this victory. Mamdani becomes New York's youngest mayor since the 19th century, as well as its first Muslim and first person of South Asian heritage to hold the office. Born in Uganda, and he's lived in New York City since he was 7 years old. His ascent reflects the city's changing demographics and rising political influence of immigrant origin communities. Zohran Mamdani is 34, has been elected the 111th mayor of New York City.
Yes, Ahmed, and we can't ignore the symbolism either. At a time when Gaza is facing genocide, when global anti-Muslim bigotry is at its feverish pitch, a Muslim mayor in America's biggest city, New York City, the Big Apple, it stands as a rebuke to that hate, not because the victory erases everything that has transpired, especially for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, but because it proves that you can be for Palestinian freedom, you can be proud about it, and you can still win. So this is a message to the Democratic Party, all of those staffers who've been receiving millions of phone calls for the past 2 years, to take that message to their bosses, take it to the Congress people, and get the Block the Bombs Act passed, get all these other, the sanctions that Democrats are asking for. This is the voice of the Democratic Party. They need to listen and stop towing this line that whenever they're in power, they don't get things done, because they want to keep towing the line and keep moving the Democratic Party closer and closer to what, as many of our guests said today, looks exactly like the mirror image of the Republican Party. Absolutely, even though it was a somber moment that we just reflected on the Islamophobic attacks that will come with this, but what we are witnessing tonight is powerful. It is a man who was once doxxed. He was smeared. He's got big money attacking him. The 1%, Wall Street, everybody against this person. But he fought a clean campaign. One thing I noticed about his campaign is that he did not call out Democrats who didn't come and support him. He just left the door open, that whoever wants to come in and join in. He didn't name and shame them, which was very classy. And so that's something that I definitely enjoyed watching in a campaign. I also, just from that perspective, I love the marketing, how young it was, how diverse it was, and didn't sound like the typical election campaign ads that we see thousands and millions of dollars being pushed down our necks, and we just don't want to hear it. So I think America has a lot to learn from this campaign and this win, definitely. And justice, I really, really hope, and this is something that I'm going to say to a lot of activists on the streets that, organizers that we organize with, that it's going to be a tough, it was a tough run, but even just running the city is going to be tough for him. And as our guest said, we need to be there for him. Those of us who have been on the streets need to hold his toes to the fire, make sure that he holds up to his promises and doesn't, but also give him the space to run this gigantic city that is loved all over the world. Thank you so much to all of you for joining, and to Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Lance. Yes, Ahmed.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you, for our guests, we really thank you for joining us. I know it's been a long day and long night, but, it was an exciting mayoral election to cover. And I wanted to give each of you just 1 minute, because we're up against the clock and we need to sign off, but just a minute each with your closing thoughts.
Sure, Mark, please.
I'll just say that it is true that he doesn't have a lot of experience. And it's also true that the mayor of a multi-million person city doesn't run things. He doesn't deal with hurricanes, as Cuomo was babbling about. But what it does mean is that it's very important who he puts into various offices in the city. And I hope it will be people who both have a foot in the street, in the activist world that got him elected, and a lot of experience and competence at whatever job it is they're doing. That will make a great deal of difference in how all of this gets implemented into the future, because we have to keep that coalition of grassroots and city organization going. But I'm just ecstatic at how this has gone tonight. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I would have probably left the show if Zohran didn't win. I'd be like, okay, enough of this. But no, I agree. So I'm very ecstatic, very happy right now. That's the first, I think, feeling for many of us that we should have. That this is quite historic, and people that actually really know Zohran for a long time. I've actually known his father for a long time. One of the best books after 9/11 I would prescribe was his book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, The U.S., the Cold War, and the Roots of Terror. Excellent book. But so, I mean, the Zohran's personal integrity and character, and, as a politician, everything whenever he speaks, it's like so obvious. He's just speaking from the heart. He doesn't have to calculate anything when he's speaking. So there's a lot of that type of admiration of him, despite knowing that there's going to be immense pressure. So I'll just repeat what I said earlier, and the sister said this, that yes, let's try to hold him to account in terms of what he's promised, what he can do. But he's really someone that also will need the support, actually. We'll need that mobilization to help him to actually accomplish the reforms that he wants to do. I think that's what we should focus on, not just sitting back at home and saying, well, he hasn't done this, he's this and that, whatever. I genuinely believe that he does want to do some things. I'm not saying they're revolutionary, free buses, a subsidized grocery store in the neighborhoods, and these things, but that will require our support. Yeah.
Here. I see that Democrats have won in New Jersey and Virginia as well. So there's also that.
We're gonna be giving a short update on some of the other elections. Some notes on them. But yeah, again, thank you so much, both of our guests, for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having us, and great to see you tonight.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. So just a quick update for our viewers. Zohran Mamdani has won the election. He's projected to win with 87% of the vote in and close to 1 million votes in his favor. He's out over 50% at 50.4%, and Cuomo 41.5%. Now, our team has been working very late today, putting together just a small update on other elections that have been taking place across the country. We want to share those with you. This is important for us, for you to like and subscribe to our channel and follow us, donate if you can. We do this work as independent. We're a community channel. We are trying to bring you news in a perspective and a way that is not shared by the mainstream media. We run on your support. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. So from Virginia to Georgia, Democrats appear to have secured sweeping victories in multiple high-profile races, strengthening their control in key urban and statewide contests. Democrats are leading or projected to win in several major races across the United States tonight, signaling strong performances in gubernatorial and mayoral contests. In Virginia, former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is projected to win the governor's race, defeating Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. State Senate Ghazala Hashmi, also a Democrat, is expected to become the lieutenant governor, beating Republican talk radio host John Reed. In New Jersey, Democratic candidate Mickey Sherrill is projected to win the governorship, defeating Trump-backed Republican Jack Ciattarelli. In Pennsylvania, Democrat Corey O'Connor is on track to become mayor of Pittsburgh, prevailing over Republican Tony Moreno. In Ohio, Democrat Aftab Paravel is projected to win re-election as Cincinnati mayor, defeating Republican Corey Bowman, the half-brother of Vice President J.D. Vance. In Massachusetts, Democratic Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is set for an easy second term, running unopposed in the party's traditional stronghold. And in Georgia, Democrat Andre Dickens is projected to secure re-election as Atlanta mayor, maintaining the city's long-held Democratic leadership. Overall, Democrats are leading in all 6 major races, extending their influence across several key battlegrounds and urban centers. Hannah?
So to all of you, thank you so much for joining us on Muslim Network TV. On behalf of our producers, our analysts, our guests, our reporters, we all will remember this night, a night when a Muslim New Yorker won the greatest city, as some would call it, New York City, the city of lights, and has won and has gone to victory, running a clean race. And thank you so much for sticking around with us during this historic election night. Do stick around. We're going to run the package on Mamdani's victory once again. And thank you, Ahmed, for co-hosting with me. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Hannah. Also, it's been a pleasure co-hosting with you as well. It's been a very exciting night, and I appreciate everything. I know it's been quite the day, so thank you for sticking it out.
No, excellent. Thank you so much. You're watching Muslim Network TV. We're a community-based news channel and TV channel. Please follow us on our Instagram, social media, on YouTube. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
The city that never sleeps. The city that never sleeps, that carries 8 million souls and speaks 100 languages, has chosen a Muslim to lead it. New York loves Zohran Mamdani. He is the first Muslim, the first South Asian to be elected mayor of America's largest city. A city with the second largest Jewish community in the world after Tel Aviv. Zohran Mamdani was outspent by 1 to 4. Billionaires joined forces to defeat him. But he loves New York, and New York loves him. 90,000 volunteers changed history. But his path to this moment was brutal. From the day he entered the race, he faced a flood of racist and Islamophobic attacks. New York had never seen a campaign so vicious, so personal, so cruel. MAGA trolls compared him to the planes that struck the Twin Towers. Right-wing commentators called him the jihadist candidate.
You are clearly right now in the front-running position. I can tell because they've gone 9/11 on you.
This is not a job for a first timer. Any day, you could have a hurricane, you have, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic.
Any given morning, there's a crisis. And people's lives are at stake. God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?
Hey, I could. He'd be cheering.
It's another problem.
Hundreds of rabbis in New York signed statements branding him a threat to Jewish safety. They preached in synagogues, urging congregations not to vote for him. But 40% of Jewish voters said they would vote for Mamdani. Trump issued statement after statement, calling Mamdani a communist, saying he was terrible for the country, joking that he could one day become a communist president of the United States.
Maybe he'll run for president in 4 years. You have a communist president.
Even Elon Musk joined the mockery, tweeting that Zohran was the future of the Democratic Party. The hate was relentless. But Mamdani didn't bend. He didn't soften his voice.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long we have been told to ask for less than that, and to be satisfied with whatever little we receive. No more. For as long as we have lived, we have known that no matter what anyone says, there are still certain forms of hate acceptable in this city today. Islamophobia is not seen as inexcusable. One can incite violence against our mosques and know that condemnation will never come. Elected officials in this city can sell t-shirts calling for my deportation without fear of any accountability. The consequences are stark. More than 1 million Muslim New Yorkers exist in this city only to be made to feel as if guests in our own home. No more.
He stood before the microphones and spoke of Islamophobia, not as an abstract idea, but as a wound he carried since childhood.
Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion. I will always remember the disdain I faced, the way my name could immediately become Muhammad, and how I could return to my city only to be asked in a double-mirrored room at the airport if I had any plan of attacking it. And since I was very young, I have known that I was spared the worst of it.
Zohran Mamdani's father, Professor Mahmoud Mamdani, wrote a book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. Zohran Mamdani turned out to be a great Muslim, a good neighbor, and an excellent citizen.
The bigger question is whether we are willing to say goodbye to something much larger. It is whether we are willing to say goodbye to anti-Muslim sentiment that has grown so endemic in our city that when we hear it, we know not whether the words were said by a Republican or by a Democrat. We know only that it was spoken in the language of the politics of this city. In an era of ever-diminishing bipartisanship, Islamophobia has emerged as one of the few areas of agreement.
He didn't hide his faith. He didn't whisper his name. He stood tall, prayed openly, and spoke about justice unapologetically.
I will not change who I am. I will not change how I eat. I will not change the faith that I am proud to belong to. But there is one thing I will change. I will no longer look for myself in the shadows. I will find myself in the light.
When hate came for him, he answered with dignity. When fear tried to define him, he redefined courage.
I mean, this is all the Republican Party has to offer. Cheap jokes about Islamophobia so as to not have to recognize what people are living through. Attempts to pit people's humanity against each other. And I think whether it's J.D. Vance or it's Andrew Cuomo, it is the same kind of politics. It's a politics of division.
Zohran Mamdani's victory is not just a triumph for people taking charge of their city. It is a moral awakening. It is the first crack in the architecture of Islamophobia. It is a message to every young Muslim who repetitively had to urge people to say their name correctly. Those who were told to stay invisible. It is a message saying, you do not need to hide anymore. Because a city that once feared your faith now trusts it to lead. Because this time, Islamophobia didn't win. America did. Assalamu alaikum. Exciting things are happening at Muslim News, brought to you by Muslim Network TV. Our dedicated team is working tirelessly to bring you news reports, international coverage, and in-depth analysis that resonates with your world. We're not just reporting, we're offering perspectives that are uniquely ours. We're committed to connecting you to the stories shaping your community and the world. Every report, every story is carefully curated with you in mind, making your world just one click away. Join us and let's explore the depths of the stories that matter. Find Muslim News wherever you get your news. Your world, your stories, your Muslim Network TV. Stay informed, stay connected. Watch now.